be working off of like a large enterprise software platform like Salesforce or using Outreach, or you might have, but you're using something different in terms of Instagram. And I know you guys are using all sorts of different platforms, but it's really interesting if you have the ability to connect with people on several different mediums, whether that's through email and Instagram or Facebook and Instagram. You're going to be in their mind a lot more. It's really important to keep the number of touches on prospects as high as possible. Just to give you an idea, as far as in the corporate world, how persistent we are told to keep talking to somebody. If they say no, it's still kind of a yes. As long as they say, don't talk to me and get me out of your communication, I will still talk to you and I will still call you every single day.
Hey, Tanner, fuck off.
Yeah. Last Friday, I got the first email that was like profanity filled. That was the first time I've had one of those in a while. But that's going to happen. That's not uncommon. And one thing to keep in mind in sales is if you're not getting no's, you're not doing your job. And it's
preach.
And one of the key things to keep in mind is every no gets you closer to a yes. And other things to keep in mind are, not only do you want to keep in mind when you're trying to get these market partners and trying to sell these products, you also have the ability for, I call it upsell in my kind of corporate domain.
Yeah, we use upsell.
Yeah. So you have, what's upsell in your world? Like selling them.
So let's say there's a flash sale. We don't want them to just be spending the minimum. And so Sam kind of talked about this the other day. She was like, don't shop with your own wallet. So you never know how much someone is willing to spend. So you have to like throw that out there with everything that they would need in the whole system. And then you can kind of work your way down from there if their budget is tight or whatever.
That's good. I like that. You need to be familiar with the objections that you're going to run into. That's also something that I run into every day. It's really important, when you're starting out at a sales company, they will give you a book full of every objection you can think of. And it's really important to keep those in mind, have an understanding of how you're going to overcome those objections, and be able to I call it pivoting. So you would kind of pivot in the conversation and say, somebody says, okay, well, this is too expensive. I don't have this much money. And you can say, okay, well, I understand that. And that's completely reasonable. I hear this a lot. One thing we can do is we can put off the shipping date, or however you pivot around this conversation. It's really good to be able to kind of come up on the fly with how to resolve those issues.
And when you're new, like, you have your upline to do that with you, obviously, but you want to get good at that quick, because you're going to get objections all the time, every day in messages. So just getting good at that and making it personal to you. There's not going to be any sort of like template that we can give you to send to people. It's going to be customized.
One other thing, when you start out in the corporate world, they're going to give you a foundation of some sort of sales philosophy. Like when I was at Renters Warehouse, this property management company, they wanted us to read this Sandler sales methodology. Now at Concur, they want us to read the Challenger customer. And it's the Challenger sales methodology, which essentially is challenging your prospect to think about their pain and think about how your product can change their life and how it can solve their issues. And you also need to be aware of competitors. I'm not sure, do you deal with competitors a lot? Like, what if somebody's like, I love L'Oreal? Like, what's up?
that can happen. People can be attached to what they're currently using. So you have to show them the value of our products and our business. If they're thinking about another MLM or whatever, you have to show them like why our comp plan is better. So you have to have that stuff, that knowledge on deck.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to position yourself in the market to say, I guess in your guys' world, you would be talking about, we're using naturally based hair products, whereas these other people are using fillers and stuff like that. And so in some of those books, they identify really common sales misconceptions. And I definitely was I wasn't necessarily aware of these before I read all these books, but I think these might resonate with some of you. And some of these misconceptions, the first one is you speak to the product before you speak to the customer. And it's really easy to just say, I have this great product. Look, there's no artificial fillers. It's going to regrow your hair, like whatever you guys say. But it's really easy to talk to kind of the features of your product. The biggest thing you need to talk to is, why are we having this conversation? Why do you want to change your hair care? And how can it kind of change your existing, are you balding? What's the deal? And it's also, when you think about the nature of the sale, in these books, they talk about it as sort of like a dance, and it's also dealing with how much leverage you have. And so the
relationship that you have with the person, maybe? Is that what you mean?
I guess maybe.
Because the stronger relationship you have with someone, the more they're going to trust you. So the less convincing you might need to do. Is that what you mean? Like leverage in that way?
That's true. Okay. I was also going to say that what the prospect wants to do is get the most information out of you with the least commitment. So they will say, oh, what's in the product? Oh, how much is it? How long does it take to get it? And they're just going to ask you all of these questions with no commitment. And so you are giving up your leverage in this process little by little. And when you give them the price, this is really emphasized in like at the role I'm in now. When you give them the price, you have no more leverage. They don't need any other information from you. So instead of, it's really easy if somebody's going to say, I just want to know the price. Just give me the price. I need to know how much it is. You can say, I understand that you want to know how much it is, but in order for me to accurately give you a price, I need to understand what you're looking for, and I want to be able to tailor the package to your needs.
Gabby says this all the time. Yeah. She's like, don't give it all up. Gabby said, that's huge. Yeah, she says that literally all the time. She stresses this so much, like, don't give everything away. You know, in the beginning, we say build curiosity. Don't shove the bottles in the camera, you know, things like that. But anyways, sorry.
Yeah, and giving up pricing early is a really situational thing. Sometimes you're not going to be able to kind of work your way around it. But as a very last resort, you should always try to push that off and try to get the customer to sell themselves on the product. Speak to their pain. Speak about what's wrong with their current situation, and ask open-ended questions. Think about what this extra hydration could do for you when you go to Vegas this summer, or whatever it is.
Or what would you do with $1,000 extra a month?
Exactly. So getting them to think about kind of what this could do for them before they have a price in mind. Because if you just put a price in front of them, they're going to say, oh, this is too expensive. I'm not interested.
9 times out of 10, yeah, because there's been no value built around it or around their specific needs or pain point.
Right.
Yeah.
Another myth is that you will get immediate sales. You will sometimes, but you are in the business of planting seeds. Oh. You are not in the business of reaping harvest. I speak in metaphors. I don't know if this is landing with any of you, but
yes, it is. We say that.
But so you have to keep in mind that there's going to be a kind of these ideas need to mature. They need to understand the value that you can provide them, and they need to kind of think about the pains that they have. And you need to give that time. They're not going to, and if you hit them up, then they might get burned out too much. In sales, we definitely divide up our territory. We divide up our patch into industries or certain contact titles, whether they're a CFO or an account manager, what have you. And we only speak to them on a cadence of at most once every 2 weeks, once a month.
And you keep like an Excel spreadsheet of when the last time you interacted with them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So like it's good to know that too, because you don't want to be too in someone's face, but you do want to have that follow up. and that interaction. So we always talk about maybe like reply to their story or talk to them about something else other than the products or the business, and not just, hey, want to buy my shampoo, flash sale, things like that.
Yeah, and prospecting research has shown that it takes an average of 8 touches to every prospect to get your first meeting. Think about that. How many of you are touching one of these girls 8 times? And by a touch, I mean any sort of communication, whether that's an Instagram message, a Facebook DM, shooting them a text, what have you.
What have you? You're so
What
cute.
have you. Whoa, I'm trying to present here, okay? And just keep that in mind, 8 average touches to get a meeting. I don't know what your first meeting, I guess that would be a call, get on a call with somebody.
Yeah, or like a coffee date, anything like
Yeah.
that. And we usually have, like, on our calls, we usually have an upline on there too. So there's 2 Monat girls with 1 potential.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, you are in the business of getting no's, and it is very important to keep that in mind. I mean, I email over 2,000 people every single day. and the best language rewrite out there has a response rate of between 5 and 8%. So, and of those 5 to 8%, 90% of those are like, leave me alone, don't ever talk to me again. But like 5 people of those are like, I might be interested.
Gabby talks about this all the time too. Like, the more you have in your funnel, I guess, of people, the better. Because, if you reach out to 30 girls, maybe 5 are going to even be interested, and 1 maybe gets on a call with you.
Yeah. And I was doing a little bit of research. Studies show that 50% of buyers will make their buying decision based on the first salesperson to reach out to them. So you can be the second, but odds are they probably won't go with you just because you weren't there first.
AKA why you guys need to hop on this opportunity, because if you don't snag a girl or sell them products, somebody else will, or somebody already has.
Yeah. And, other things to keep in mind, things that you guys have as an advantage to leverage is you have a short sales cycle. When I was working in upmarket, the sales cycle was anywhere from a month to a month and a half. You guys can get somebody shampoo the next day. How long does it take if you start a conversation to get somebody?
It just depends. Some people will sign up with you day of. Some people it takes 6 months. It really just depends on
6 months.
Well, or it just takes people time to come around to the idea. As you said,
right.
You have to introduce it several times to someone, because maybe you don't have the best relationship with them. Maybe you're rebuilding the relationship. 9 times out of 10, they're not just going to say yes right away. You've been working them for a while.
And one other misconception that a lot of people have is that every lead that you get, you should try and sell. And
wait, what do you mean?
I'll clarify. Clarify. So what I mean by that is when you have leads, there's going to be qualified leads and unqualified leads. So how many times have you talked to somebody that says, I'm interested, but they're broke as fuck?
Or they ghost you.
Exactly. So those are unqualified leads, and you need to spend just as much time qualifying your leads versus chasing down somebody that's never going to buy anyway. You shouldn't waste your time.
So true.
I spend most of my day talking to people. They will come through the inbound line and they'll say, I want to buy your product. And then I'll talk to them and they'll say, I'd love to have this rolled out by mid next year. And it's like, our sales cycle is 6 weeks. Why are we even having this conversation? So just keep in mind that it's important that you should kind of speak to your potential customers and understand if they're even in the market. What's their timeline? When do they want to have these products? What's their budget? Can you afford this?
Yeah, and if it's a business, creating a sense of urgency too, I think is huge, because a lot of people are going to be waiting for the right time and all this kind of stuff, when now's the time. Now, skincare, all this new stuff happening, create that urgency.
Right.
And I think what he's trying to say is just know where to put your eggs in the basket, you know what I'm trying to say? Know where to focus your energy, because you know, chances are someone showed you interest, and if you keep going back to them, like, you're just wasting your time and your energy. Like, focus on the people that actually, you know, will get on a call with you. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Thank you. Jesus.
Yeah, and so the other thing that I was gonna say is, in my world, the best practice when you're meeting with somebody is to have, when I first talk to the potential customers, is I would first have an upfront contract, which you guys could also use. And what I mean by an upfront contract is you say, hi, you know, I work with Monet. This is what I do. And hopefully the goal of today is to understand a little bit more about your hair and what your goals are. And then hopefully we can decide whether it makes sense to look into these products and order something, or if it doesn't work out, maybe it'll work out later. But ultimately you start the conversation with identifying who you are and what the goal of the conversation is. And then you can kind of go from there. Next, I would go into we call it discovery. And what I mean by that is discovering why we're having this conversation, why it's a good idea to have this conversation now, and understand what their pain is. And we kind of already talked about this, but whatever their goals are, I know you talk about, is your hair oily? Are you?
Yeah.
Is your hair getting thin and
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah, it's important to understand all that. Well, we have to do that for product recommendations anyways, so that kind of comes naturally in the conversation. But yeah, Raina. Sorry, our dog is.
And so one of the things that they teach us is that discovery is where the sale is made. The sale is not made when you're talking about the features. You're talking about how good the product is, how good the skincare is. The sale is made in the discovery because you get the customer thinking about how much they have to improve and all of the things that are going wrong. You need to really make them focus on that. And then once they focus on that, you can start to introduce what these products are and how it can speak to their pain and resolve their issues and make their life better. And then only once they're thinking about how this value can address their pain, then you can move into kind of pricing and start looking at commitments. But only once you have that proper discovery should you start kind of speaking to the product and kind of going into pricing and commitments.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into like being consistent with posting, because someone might start, you know, you might have that one initial conversation about their hair struggles, and then maybe they need some time to like think about it and watch your story. And the more that they see it, they're like, oh man, her hair looks so good. Or wow, I could be, you know, growing my hair, having less oiliness, anything like that. So just keep that fresh in their mind.
And the other things I would say is don't give them the opportunity to schedule with you. Always set a follow-up date. Always put something on the calendar. If they say they will call you back, I promise you they will never call you back. They will never reach back out. It's good to kind of have something on the calendar in terms of next steps, and always be prospecting. Always be reaching out. Always be reaching out to new people. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, if you're not filling your pipeline with potential leads and potential sales, then eventually you'll dry up. And sales always occurs in arrears. So the way my business works is I get paid on the month's performance 2 months prior. So I'm basically—
We get it of the month. We get it the 15th of the month following.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So same kind of idea. So you're really just planting seeds and you're trying to get people to think about it, and then just make sure you're following up. And that's pretty much all I got. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, I hope this was helpful. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys for hopping on. Feel free to text me if you have any questions or want us to do a call again. Yeah. Okay, bye.